amazing Australians and the story of their lives. You're tuned to Lots to Chat About with Rosemary Peterswald.
Hello and welcome, listeners. My guest today is Dr. Rosie Dub. Many years ago, when I decided I'd like to write novels and a memoir, Rosie was who I turned to. I'm not sure that when she received the first manuscript from me, she would have definitely thought maybe you should stick to your day job, which was, of course, running our real estate agency, Peterswald's in Hobart. But heck, what can be so different from writing real estate ads to writing a novel? Well, Rosie was about to tell me, and through her utmost patience and professionalism, she was able to guide me through my first novel, published. Rosie is not only a terrific mentor, she's also a wonderful published author of a number of books and has just published a terrific new book, Between Worlds, a gripping tale of love, loss, and echoes that haunt us, a metaphysical story, celebration of everyday life. Welcome, Rosie.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
It's lovely to have you. Now, Rosie, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up and how you discovered the love of writing.
Oh, okay. So I grew up in Adelaide. I was born in Adelaide and grew up there. Left when I was probably about 18, really. But I think I discovered the love of, well, I know I discovered the love of writing through reading. The love of reading came first, and I was a lonely child and not a particularly happy child, but reading was just an extraordinary escape for me. And I just inhabited other worlds, inhabited books. And then it just struck me that that's what I had to do. I had to actually create other worlds, create stories. And gradually I came to that. It took a long time. I touched onto it and went on into it and then withdrew. And, eventually I actually got the self-discipline and the skills and started writing books.
Which are terrific books, I might add. Now, Rosie, you did say that for many years you've been following a winding and multi-branched path into the heart of story and its purpose. I mean, exploring the linkages between modern story, myth, ancient spiritual traditions, psychology, and creativity. Perhaps explain a little bit more to us about that.
Yeah, okay. Well, that was the subject of my PhD, and I came to my PhD, as I do with a lot of things, in a kind of meandering way. Through teaching other people, through mentoring, but also running workshops, I realized that a lot of people were actually exploring themselves in books, and that the stories they wrote were taking them on a journey too. So the stories themselves carried the journey, the quest, the kind of dive into the past in order to enable the characters to move into a more productive or positive future, if you like,
Right.
or present. But it also enabled writers to explore their own selves. So there was this really interesting journey of forgiveness that people would take. And obviously people who are writing fiction are still obviously writing about themselves. I've learned that, even though they're doing it metaphorically and they're applying fictional characters and stories, the thematic work that most of us do is to do with our own lives, our own inner lives.
Yes.
And then I started sort of diving, and it just happened. I sort of started exploring traditional stories, traditional tales, which are often teaching tales. And I realized, I went into Joseph Campbell and I went into shamanism, I went into different wisdom traditions, and I started to think, and mythology, I was teaching mythology as well, mythic writing.
Yes.
I started to think there are so many connections here, and stories are a really fundamental part of human existence. We've always told stories. Why are we doing it? We're making sense of the world, we're making sense of ourselves, but there's something evolutionary in them, there's something developmental, and that's what I was exploring and still continue to do to this day.
You actually completed, as you said, your PhD called
I did,
Story,
yes,
which
yes.
which opened up sort of new directions for your research, didn't it, Rosie?
It really did, yeah. I when I completed my PhD, I thought for a split second, I thought, right, done it, and then I realised I had so much more to do. So yeah, I've continued to research in different areas and just trying to collate everything. in ways that can be, that are just through story. So it permeates all my own writing. It also permeates my non-fiction writing, which I do articles, but also my Substack, which is all about the alchemy of story. I
Yes.
do articles about writing and reading and creativity. So, it's permeating everything that I do, really.
And for 4 years, Rosie, you worked as a creative writing fellow at Aberystwyth University in Wales, supervising PhD students and teaching MA students. Tell us about that time.
Yeah, that was a strange time. It sort of, I just finished my PhD, and of course that gave me, and I'd been teaching in, Swinburne University, the MA in writing there anyway, but online. So, and suddenly my husband, who's British, his mother became very ill, and we hadn't managed to get over there for a long time, and so we thought, well, why don't we just take the kids and go? And of course, basically, I needed a job.
Fair enough, yeah. And you
But oddly
chose,
enough,
can I just interrupt? I think you chose one of the coldest places. I once spent time on Aberystwyth Beach and I was freezing.
it can be very bleak indeed. And 4 years on Aberystwyth was a little of a stretch, but it was also very beautiful, and the people were lovely. And so and it was only a few hours drive, 2 hours drive from my mother-in-law, and
Right.
so it was a really important time. But for me, it was fantastic. I actually got to supervise PhD students who were working with novels and non-fiction works that were relating to my own research. So it was just fantastic. I loved it.
And
Absolutely.
did you discover any wonderful writers that have gone on to make a name for themselves, Welsh writers? Or, well, I don't suppose they
Well,
were all Welsh. They probably would have come from
mm,
quite a few places.
no, I had one from Qatar, one from the US,
Right.
uh, two actually from the US, who were living. I mean, the one from Qatar only visited occasionally, but she was doing it remotely. So no, and she's published a book, gone on to publish a book. One of the ones from the US has gone on to publish two collections of short stories.
All
You know,
right.
don't know. I haven't kept up with. I mean, obviously, I didn't have a huge number of people because it's quite intense supervising
It
PhD students.
I can imagine it would be.
Mm.
Now, in Hobart, where you are based, you've mentored many writers. I mean, how do you combine sort of mentoring with your own writing, which you've written, which we'll get onto a little bit later, Rosie, but you've written a number of books, so, and as you say, articles. So how do you sort of combine them both?
Well, it's a matter of juggling. I mean, I have this sort of early morning routine where I wake really early, and that's when I tend to do my writing. I'm much clearer and more creative in the mornings. So,
Right. Unlike
um,
me.
I'm like, well, yeah, I'm not a night person, put it that way.
Right.
And so, yes, that's where I tend to do most of my writing. Not always. Sometimes I have days, I have little mini writing retreats at home, or go away and do lots of writing. And then I work in my manuscript assessments, my mentoring, because I love mentoring. I love helping people bring their projects to fruition, like to actually envision something and then to make it happen is such a lovely process. And to watch people and help people become more confident along the way. I mean, working with you was a delight
I
all
think you
those years
probably
ago.
thought, oh God, stick to your day job when
No,
you
I
got that
mean,
first manuscript. But you
your
was
very first draft was rough, but then they always are.
Yeah, you were terrific, Rosie. And at that stage, I think you were living down in Kettering, and I can always remember driving up your driveway with that first manuscript. And then, of course, you've moved into West Hobart. Now, your husband's a writer as well, isn't he?
He is. Well, he was. He says he's not anymore.
Oh, right.
But threatens occasionally to start again. He was primarily a photographer, and he's retired now. But he's yeah,
But
he's an extraordinary writer, non-fiction articles, but also he's written one
right.
novel. Mm.
Yes, and so you're able to sort of bounce things backwards and forwards, but between you a little bit like Rob and I do. But now you have also, Rosie, run creative writing courses for people suffering from chronic depression. And, I mean, you've explored ways of using story to rebalance the psyche. I mean, how does that work, Rosie?
Well, it's to do with, I mean, one of the really fundamental things about creativity is that it has to be playful, which means it has to be flexible. And when we get depressed and anxious, we become rigid. We lose our playfulness. And so in order to engage creativity, laughter and fun and a lack of consequence is something that needs to be brought in. So telling stories, whether it's on paper or orally, is a really wonderful way of softening us somehow. But also there are other factors at play that sometimes when somebody's been through something very difficult and struggled with depression or a nervous breakdown and trauma, it can be quite dangerous to go back into those memories and rewrite and write them, because you are basically re-engaging with the emotions, some of which you didn't feel at the time because they've been stored, if you know what I mean. They've
Yes.
never actually been faced. So it can be, it needs to be happen with help and support. But occasionally with this group that I work with, somebody would be ready to do it. And they would not, I mean, necessarily with me guiding them, but I have subsequently helped with mentoring individuals who are doing that. And they've gone into really difficult memories and worked it through, but in the process, release the emotions around them. So the memories remain, but the emotions are released. So they're not carrying that weight anymore.
As you're aware, many of our listeners are sight impaired here at Reading Radio, although many listeners are not. And audiobooks, Rosie, is now, I mean, not just for people with sight impaired, but Rob, for instance, my husband, listens, I think, more to audiobooks now than he does, actual reading. And what I think's wonderful is that so many of the writers now read their own books, and it really puts an extra thing into it, doesn't it?
It really does, and it's something I'm considering doing. Finding the right space, quiet space to do it in is the really difficult bit. But yeah, it is. It's a wonderful opportunity, and it's such a growing market as well. That people, even people who are not sight impaired, but people who are just busy, they get in the car and they can
Yes,
put
or
the book
walking.
on.
I listen when I'm walking,
Yes,
and
exactly.
it inspires me to just do another round of the park or whatever. But if you're particularly onto a good part, and you don't want to give it up. You're listening to Lots to Chat About. I'm Rosemary Peterswald, and my guest today is Dr. Rosie Dub, author and writing mentor. Now, Rosie, let's talk about your own writing. Tell us about your first book that was published by HarperCollins called Gathering Storm. I remember being at the launch of that, and, how excited we both were, really. I was for you, and it was a terrific book. So just tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, Gathering Storm, that was published in 2008. I mean, time does fly by. And it took a long time to write. That book emerged from the themes that I was working with in my own life about belonging and identity, but it
Yes.
also emerged from a journey we took around Australia when our children were tiny. My oldest was 3, my second one was 18 months, and the youngest wasn't born yet, although he was born on the road.
Oh, really?
And we did a 14-month journey, and that proved to be, and about halfway through, I got the idea. The idea just arrived in the
Yes.
middle of Sturt Highway. And from there, I realized that I was documenting I'm a busy mother with 3 little children, two or 3 little children. I couldn't write a lot, but I was documenting what I was seeing and sensing and all the smells and the visuals. And that became the kind of, the journey itself became the basis for this road novel.
And it was a terrific novel, I might add. And then, of course, there was Flight. Now, Flight is the prequel to the book which you have just written. But Penguin took that on, of course. Tell us a bit about Flight.
Flight was quite a different story in a way, more metaphysical, more exploring. In Gathering Storm, I explored sort of epigenetics, like ancestral patterns of behaviour that have been passed through, and in Flight, I'm sort of playing with more metaphysical ideas, past lives, and it's set in Sydney and Tasmania.
Yes.
It's
which
it's a
is you're so very familiar with, Rosie, which comes across incredibly in your terrific new novel, which, as I said, is it's a sequel to Flight, but a standalone novel as well, Between Worlds, where you literally do write about two worlds, one real and the other. So explain a little bit about that to us.
Yes, well, there's the idea that the child in particularly the child, but also the main character Fern in Between Worlds is able to walk between worlds, which is moving between the physical world and the metaphysical world, and of course that creates all sorts of problems because she's engaging with past lives which are haunting her to this day. So it's playing with the ghosts that haunt us, but on a level of grief,
Yes.
personal grief, but also the past, and also the ghosts that actually haunt houses, or may do. I mean, who knows? But so it moves between Tasmania and then from Tasmania into southern France, and
Yes.
most of the book is set there. And it moves into a historical sort of fictional thread
It
set, but right back in the Qatar times, 1200
And you
AD.
do it so well. I mean, I loved your descriptions of Tasmania, and of course, in particular, the old growth forests, where there's always, isn't it, the fight between keeping them pristine and those who want to log. Rob and I drove through parts of the Tarkine forest last year, and it truly is beautiful. And of course, Tasmania is the home to the magnificent Huon pine, some of which are thousands of years old. So I presume you sort of decided to incorporate that into your novel because it's something very close to your heart, isn't it, Rosie?
It really is, yes. And since we moved to Tasmania in the year 2000, we accidentally embroiled ourselves in a kind of old growth battle by
Yes.
signing a artist's petition to stop some old growth. I can't even remember, some
Yes.
forestry company from funding 10 Days on the Island festival, without having any idea of the consequences of that. And there were consequences, because it was not so much now, but a really deeply ingrained battle. We just walked in without realizing. And the forests are beautiful here. The forests are special. There's not a lot of old growth forests anywhere in the world,
No.
really. We've got a good portion of our state set aside for that, so it is worth protecting. And I also wanted to explore this battle and how it can be bridged. And I wanted to bring kindness and compassion in instead of the us and them,
Yes.
explore the way that we can sort of just realize that we're all human. We
And
all have needs, and
we've all
I don't
got
know.
to survive together. And, there's
Mm,
always the argument, isn't it? Jobs against preserving the forest. But
exactly.
it's a matter of having I suppose, a bit of a compromise. But yes, I mean, Tasmanian forests, particularly in the Huon pine, are just so beautiful. Now, in the novel, Rosie, you write about the relationship between Fern and her daughter Freya. It's a complicated love, isn't it? As often is the case between mothers and daughters.
Mm. It really is, yeah. I mean, often I find myself, I didn't realize it, but all of my books have got mother and daughter
Themes.
themes
Yes.
quite strongly. And they also tend to have a father-daughter theme, which is, very unpleasant fathers, but this mother-daughter theme. And this was a different one because I turned it round slightly to a child,
Yes.
like just kind of something that's lying between the mother and the daughter, even though she's only a little child, she doesn't fully trust her mother. And of course that's a really something that the mother, but of course they love each other, but there's something there.
Yes.
And she has to make this decision to look within herself to find what it is that has created this conflict, whenever and wherever that might have been. And of course, it turns out to have been in southern France
Uh,
many years.
in the foothills of the Pyrenees, which you
Yes,
describe so
yes.
beautifully, as you do Tasmania. Did you spend time in the Pyrenees, Rosie? Or
Yes, I did. When we went over to move to the UK for 4 years, every summer we were down there,
right?
because I just love it. I've just always been drawn down there, and so yes, I drew on the notes I made and everything I absorbed while I was there, and a bit, and of course research to create hopefully an authentic setting.
which you you have very, very much so. When in France, Fern walked through, a door into another world, a totally other, from intense summer heat to icy winter where an old woman sat by a fire. Then, of course, the present owner, Amber, tells her there have been spirits and witches coven there. Tell us a bit more about that.
Yes, the whole because the south of France is an incredibly spiritual place. I mean, it's got the Cathars, it's got this whole legend around Mary Magdalene, it's got the witches or the wise women, if you want to call them, as do many places. But yeah, so Fern is accidentally steps into the past, really,
Yes.
and then wakes up finding herself on the floor of a modern home. Sort of, so it's this
Very
play
well done, I might add. Yes.
it does sound a bit odd, but yes, it works, I think. But it's this play on between the past and the present and the linkages that happen and that continuity that goes all the way through, that this house has always been the house of a wise woman.
Yes.
And yeah, even now, the people who have bought it, even though it's broken from the family, the people who have bought it are not witches, but of that type, put it that way.
Exactly. Now, Rosie, why do you think Tasmania produces so many good writers? Is it because it's so cold at times here that sitting in a warm room, escaping the cold, is tempting?
There's nothing else to do. Rug up. I don't know what it is. I think a lot of writers respond to the environment.
Yes.
There's also possibly more time, less and more space. There's less panic, even in Hobart, it's a slow city. Perhaps it's that. Perhaps it's just that it sits aside from the mainland Australia, and so it gives fresh eyes, fresh perspectives.
It is. It certainly encourages writer. Of course, Richard Flanagan, I suppose, is our best known writer from Tasmania. But there are many others, and some people just go to Tasmania to write. Like my past guest, Karen Brooks. She's ended up in Tasmania. There is something in the air, isn't it?
There really is, and it's in increasing numbers of writers coming here. It was amazing to see. I recently went to a small day-long writers festival, and all these writers I'd never heard of, but are actually quite successful, who moved to Tasmania. I'd heard of them, but I didn't know they lived here. Put it that way.
Geraldine
and
Brooks.
I think that's great.
Yes. Oh, I look at it. It's sort of, I don't know, it requires writing about. Geraldine Brooks, of course, wrote a lovely book recently where she visited Flinders Island because she was reminiscing about her husband's death. And I think the scenery, it needs writing about, doesn't it?
I think so. I think that, and there's, often this is why we get so much Gothic material coming out of Tasmania. There's that darkness, there's the cold winters. There's, it's got a really different feel from the rest of Australia, and I think that plays with people's imaginations quite a lot too.
Is the writing centre is that still going, Rosie, in Tasmania?
It is. It had a little bit of a lull, but
yes.
it's back on its feet, and I think this year, we're in 2026. This year I'm running a 9-month Write Your Novel course through them.
Right.
Which is...
and do you do that online, Rosie, as well, or is it just purely for people to come in?
This particular one is online.
All right.
One once a fortnight, and then three days, full days, face-to-face.
Right.
During the course of the year, yeah, but I run things online as well, independent. Most of my work is independent. Most of my workshops are independent,
and we'll give out the way people can contact you. But Rosie, your latest book, which is what we are really talking about now, it is out there, isn't it? In bookshops, it's on Amazon, it's online, and it's called Between Worlds. And it is available pretty much everywhere, isn't it?
I hope so, but certainly online and certainly on Amazon, certainly on various book sites. I don't,
And if your bookshop doesn't have it in, just always ask them because they can certainly get it in for you.
Yes.
But and Rosie is also you're on Facebook and your webpage. Have you still got your rosiedub.com webpage going, Rosie?
Yes, it's still up, but if you go there, you'll see under reconstruction because I'm actually redoing it at the moment. So you can still look at it, but it will be up brand new and sparkling. The other thing, of course, is it's rosiedub.com.
Yes, ROSIE dub.com. Rosie,
And
you're
Dub is one B.
yeah, DUB. Did I say double B? The DUB.com.
Yes. And the other thing is my Alchemy of Stories on Substack. So for anyone interested in reading articles about story, creativity, writing, there's a fortnightly in-depth article. I've just posted one about creative blocks.
All right. And that is Alchemy, ALCHEMY?
Alchemy of Story.
Right.
And it's on Substack. And from there, I'll be building a sort of writing circle as well online.
Oh, well, that's terrific, Rosie. Looking at the online book launch, online photos, etc., of your book launch at Fuller's, it was a terrific event, and they are very supportive of Tasmanian writers, aren't they? They
really are. They're just wonderful. I mean, they've been voted the best bookshop in Australia, I think, a couple of years running. So, they've got so much going on there, and yeah, the launch was marvelous. It was so nice. It's been a long time between books. There's been a lot of
makes it all.
Just was a lot of time out for various reasons, and to be able to come back and just have fun and have so much goodwill. People just coming, bringing so much goodwill, and it was a joyful occasion. It's great.
Very special and worth waiting for. Rosie, look. Time has run out. Paul's waving through the window. But it's been an absolute pleasure to have you as my guest. As I've said, Rosie is rosiedub.com. She's also available on Facebook. And her new book, Between Worlds, is out now. So check it out at your local bookstore or online. So thank you, Rosie, for being my guest today.
Thank you. It's been lovely.
And thank you, Paul, for producing. And this program has been produced in the studios of 4RPH Reading Radio in Brisbane for syndication around Australia. It will also be available on my YouTube channel, Lots to Chat About, with Rosemary Peterswald. Thank you, Rosie.
Thanks.
Great friends and great chats. That was another Lots to Chat About with Rosemary Peterswald. Stay tuned next week for another amazing chat.